Hi, everybody. Okay, Saxon Math Lesson 110. We are going to learn about multiplication times 5. And times 5 is awesome because you already know it, but I don't know if you know it, okay? Times 5 is pretty simple, but I'm going to explain it. And then we can work on our lesson worksheets together. There's quite a few worksheets today, okay? So I'm actually going to cut the video short after the first 3 worksheets, and then we'll do the problem-solving worksheets on a separate video. Okay, here we go. Times 5. Now, when we think of multiplication, if you look over here, I wrote out a little sentence here, right? Multiplication is just groups of, okay? When you think of the multiplication symbol, it just means groups of something. Today, I'm going to use pennies as my example, okay? So times 5, it'll be 5 pennies, whichever number it'll be, and it'll be groups of whatever we decide it could be, okay? So this is my groups of 5 pennies equals blank pennies, okay? I don't know if that kind of makes sense. I think it kind of makes it a little bit tricky to understand, but the multiplication symbol just means groups of whatever it could be. It could be like bananas. I keep talking about bananas. Okay, here we go. Let's go through the facts first, okay? 0 times 5 pennies. If you have nothing, you can't really have groups of anything, right? So you already know your zeros. 0 times 5 is 0. 1 times 5, 1, right? Group of 5 pennies means there's still 5 pennies there. There's only one group of them, okay? So 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is actually 2 groups of 5 pennies, which makes it 2 groups of 5, which makes it 10 pennies, right? 2 times 5 equals 10. If you have 3 times 5, that just means you have 3 groups of 5 pennies, which means you have 15. 4 times 5 is just 4 groups of 5, which gives you 20. 5 times 5 means there's 5 groups of 5, which gives you 25. 6 times 5 is 6 groups of 5, which gives you 30. 7 times 5 is 7 groups of 5, which gives you 35. If you notice, the answers are counting by what? They're counting by 5s, right? 0, 5, 10, and we count by 5s all the time at math meeting at school. 8 times 5 is 8 groups of 5, which will give you 40. Okay, 9 times 5 is 9 groups of 5, which will give you 45. Now, I'm using pennies because in our lesson worksheet 110, we are going to be using pennies as our examples, okay? I know in your guided math practice, you've actually seen other ones, not just pennies. You've already have multiplication facts in number sentences, okay, that don't use pennies. All right, here we go. I'm going to go a little slowly, so make sure you have your lesson worksheets out in front of you, okay? Here for letter A, the first one, we have A, 3 times 5 pennies equals blank pennies, which just means there's 3 groups of 5, okay? We have 5, 10, 15. So 3 times 5 pennies equals 15 pennies. The way they write it vertically, 5 pennies times 3, we've seen it this way before. You can write it horizontally or you can write it vertically, 15 pennies. B, 1 times 5 pennies. There's only one group, there's still 5 pennies there. That didn't change, okay? So 5 pennies times 1 equals 5 pennies. C, 4 times 5 pennies equals blank pennies. There are 4 groups of 5 pennies now, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20. So we have 20 pennies. Write it vertically, 5 pennies times 4 is 20. Okay? D, 2 times 5 pennies equals blank pennies. Well, we have 2 groups of 5, 5 and 10, so that makes 10 pennies. 5 pennies times 2 is 10 pennies. Okay? Moving over, let's see if I have anything else. Oh, we have an E. Okay, let me finish E, okay? 0 times 5 pennies, you got it. You have nothing here, no group. 0 times anything is always 0. Do you guys hear Gino sneeze? He just sneezed. 5 pennies times 0 equals 0 pennies. Okay. I hear Gino walking around, jingling. Okay. He wants to go outside, but I'm not going to let him go because I am busy with you guys. Okay. Letter F. Okay. Same thing on this time. And now our groups, we're going to be changing it up. Okay. We're going to count how many groups that we have. All right. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 groups, okay? So I'm going to do 7 here. 7 times 5 pennies. We have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So 35 pennies, okay? 5 times 7 equals 35. We're kind of doing the opposite of what we just did on the A side, right? Okay, H. Blank times 5 pennies equals blank pennies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 groups. 5 times 5 equals 25 pennies. You can always count your groups by 5s, right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 5 times 5 equals 25. Okay, I. Blank times 5 pennies equals blank pennies. Let's see how many groups there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 groups of 5 pennies. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. 40 pennies. 5 times 8 equals 40. Are you guys getting the hang of this? It's not that bad, right? You count by 5s all the time, okay? J, blank times 5 pennies equals blank pennies. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 5 pennies equals 30 pennies. And if I'm wrong, I probably will go back and count them again, right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, never hurts to count by 5s and check your work. 5 times 6 equals 30 pennies. Okay, not bad, right? Good job, you guys. If you're checking your work and you already did it, awesome. Give yourself a great check mark, a star, put something on your paper. Ooh, this one's really fun. Okay, we've seen this before. What is it? It is a orange. No, it's actually a clock, right? It's the clock that we have in our classroom wall. And you probably have a clock like this at home. Okay, so the neat thing about times 5 is that a clock can help us figure out our times 5 answers. And watch, I'll show you. Look at this, okay? I am going to write above the 12, right? I think I'm going to write something up there. What should I write? I think I'm going to write number, I want to double check and make sure I'm doing it right with you guys. Okay, I'm going to write 60. I know it's technically o'clock, but for this example and for multiplication, I'm going to use 60 as in 60 minutes, okay? Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to count by 5s, just like we do if we're looking at our clock and telling time, okay? So number 1 is going to be 5. Remember, 12 is also 0, right? 5, 10, 15, because the 3 hand, right, is usually 15 minutes. 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and finally 55, right? If our minute hand was pointing at the 11, we would know that would mean 55 minutes. So look at this. We've done this so many times. Our clock face is actually a giant times 5 table. Okay, so let's take a look at this. If I looked at 5 and I look at number 1 and I said 1 times 5, and if I look at the very first fact sheet on our paper, 1 times 5, look, the answer is 5. Right? Because the 1 is telling me there's 5 minutes. Okay, 1 times 5 is 5. If I do 5 times 5, I'm going to look for 5, and I'm going to look at 5, and look, 5 times 5, what's the answer? 25. Okay, 9 times 5, I'm going to go find the 5. I'm going to go find number 9. And whatever is next to number 9, whatever those minutes are, that's actually giving us a great shortcut, right? 5 times 9 is 45. Okay. Now, if you haven't done the rest of this paper, I want you to stop the video and pause it. I want you to work on it before you go through the answers with me, okay? I want you to try it out and go through this clock and figure out what the answers are, okay? And then you're gonna get really, really good at it, okay? If you're already done and you did that already, go through and check your answers with me, okay? Ooh, that was a funny check mark. Okay, so I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna assume that you guys did it by yourself, or maybe you still wanna do it with me, either way, okay? 2 times 5 is 10. I'm gonna check my clock. Oh, 2 is 10. Yep, 5 times 2 is 10. Look, I can see it right there. 6 times 5, 30. 10 times 5, I'm gonna look for 10, and the 10 is pointing to the 50, which is 10 times 5 equals 50. 3 times 5, okay, here's 5 and 3, which gives me the answer of 15. 7 times 5, here's 7, gives me the answer of 35. 11 times 5, oh, here it is, pointing to the 11, I have 55 right next to it. This is a great way to help you figure out your multiplication times 5, okay? 4 times 5 is 20. 8 times 5 is 40. And 12 times 5, look what I remember what I wrote at the very top. I didn't write 0 because 12 times 5, 5 and 12 equals 60. And that means there are 60 minutes in our clock, which is super helpful when we get to, when we talk about 12 times 5. Okay, 60. The very bottom row of this worksheet is your times 5 practice again. So we have more. And if you remember, we are counting by 5s. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. And if you've already done this, right, you're just going to give yourself a check mark. 5 times 2 equals 10. 5 times 3 equals 15. 5 times 4 equals 20. 5 times 5 equals 25. 5 times 6 equals 30. 5 times 7 equals 35. 5 times 8 equals 40, and 5 times 9 equals 45. Awesome job. See, you guys got the hang of times 5, okay? All right, I'll move on. I'll add another video to do the problem-solving worksheets, okay, you guys? All right, bye.